Hey everyone, welcome back to what will be probably titled in this video, My Last Alabama Mail Day. The time has come for me to start packing up my things, and I'm going to do that next week. Pack my cards together and then move myself over to the state of Arkansas as I continue a career change post-military life. And this will be the last mail day. I've got nothing. I'm waiting for nothing to be delivered, and I'm looking at nothing on eBay. So I'm not looking to pick anything up. I'm sure when I get to Arkansas, I'll start the purchases again. And the second part of this video is primarily just to kind of give you my mindset of where I am in the hobby and what my thoughts are as we face the possibility of being as a country in a recession and the possibility of card prices coming down. Me as a collector, I personally welcome the ideal. I don't sell anything hardly. I maybe sold a few cards here or there in the last decade, but for the most part, 99.999% of the time, I'm a buyer, not a seller. So I welcome it. Most of you know I have had if you look at my earlier videos, I was primarily a vintage collector. I can say officially that I have been currently priced out of the vintage market. I very rarely buy any vintage pieces. Once in a while, something will come and slip through the cracks, and I might purchase it. But for the most part, those days of me buying vintage are over because everything is 5 times what I was paying for it. Even as early as 2.5, 3 years ago, things have really exploded. My expectation is that as a lot of people get burned in the ultra modern, they're going to flock to vintage as a safe haven to try to salvage anything they have of value from their current collections. And we're already seeing people buying Mickey Mantle like crazy. I'd imagine guys like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ernie Banks even will see an uptick as well. And maybe there'll be a newfound appreciation for some of that vintage stuff that was overlooked in the last 2 years by a lot of collectors who are just 99% ultra modern. You'll see here in my video as I show these items there is no ultra modern. There's nothing that is not from the 80s or 90s in this stack of purchases, and I continue to focus on these areas now. As I say, my vintage purchases have been curtailed, so it's mostly late 80s, late 90s kind of stuff that I'm interested in. I'm interested in cutting down on shipping costs, so I'll bundle it. I've got one seller here, one seller there. So just two sellers that I bought from, and I'll go and showcase those now that I've kind of given my thoughts. Ultimately, for those of you who wonder, I still think it's an okay time to buy vintage. You should get some. Like I said, I think it might continue to go up even in the recession. It might dip a little bit. If it dips, I guarantee you I'm a buyer, but I doubt it'll ever get to the point where it was when I bought the majority of my stuff. I just don't see it dropping 5x, but you never know. If we're in a really bad economic situation as a country, anything's possible. Won't rule anything out, but I feel confident buying this some of this late 80s stuff and late 90s stuff. The point is, I love this stuff. These are guys that I grew up cheering for, and it's an emotional connection. And so I don't hesitate to spend $10 on a slab for something that I have an emotional connection to. So without further delay, let's start with this 89 score traded Randy Johnson. Love that it has him his first Mariners card in action, shows him pitching, as I'm a big Mariners fan. So my first Randy Johnson. Got this for about $5.50 from the seller. And as I said, all these first 5 cards we bundled together. Here's a late 90s insert, the Topps Chrome Derek Jeter, early road to the Hall. Not a tough insert by any means, but for a $9 price point at a mint 9, you cannot go wrong with that. And once again, I continue to look for Jeter, A-Rod, and to a certain extent Griffey, although his stuff is really shooting up. Inserts from the 90s. And the inserts from the 90s are starting to get their love. You know what? Not a lot of us were collecting that. I was not a collector in the late 90s. So I've enjoyed picking that stuff up. I was not collecting much in 94 either, but this is the second Hall of Fame for the 94 set. You've got Kidd and Grant Hill, the only 2 Hall of Famers for that. So I picked those guys up really cheap. Got this for a little over $7. This Emotion, Jason Kidd and a mint 9. And another card from that same Emotion set, also in a 9. I paid a little over $8 for this. Bundled all together, these cards, shipping and handling, I think was $8.99. Plus tax and all, it's about $50 for these 5 cards, and so about $10 on average price point when you look at the total cost. And it's funny because at the height of the market explosion in February, March 2021, I bought this card in a 9 for about $60. Then a couple weeks later, I saw another 9 sell for like $120, and I thought, wow, how great a deal I did to get that at $60. And now I doubt I'll ever get that $60 back if I were to sell that 9. This 8 I paid just a little over $5 for. And who could have predicted that all this stuff, would flood the market, as PSA came back and dumped a lot of these recently graded copies on the market. But this is just a beautiful Steve Nash card. It's got a refractor finish front and back from a premium product, UD3 from '96. Really glad to get that for the Nash collection, even though I have it in a 9. Now I've kind of hedged my bets by buying a cheap and expensive 8. All right, so let's move on to the next seller. I bought 9 cards. Shipping handling was $10, so in all, a little over $1 a piece. All his cards were listed at $7.99 minimum bid. So all of them except the last 2, I won on that $7.99 minimum bid. So the first one, this A-Rod SPX baseball. Just a gorgeous card. I love the 97 SPX design with that die cut. It just calls to me. I love that. It's non-circular. It's very angular in its die cut, but a gorgeous card. Love the basketball versions of this as well. All right, on to a little football. I think the only real card from '97 you want to be collecting under football is Tony Gonzalez, the only player. This, like I said, one with the $7.99 bid. They also had an 8 in that auction for the same starting price that went unsold. But I figure as a mint 9, this is a low-tier rookie, the collector's choice. Shows him in his California Golden Bears uniform. But Tony Gonzalez, 15,000 yards receiving. In my opinion, one of the greatest, if not the greatest tight end to ever play the game. Unrivaled athleticism. Was a basketball player too at Cal. Just a phenomenal athlete who left his mark with a long, respectable career in the NFL. I don't think he ever won a title, but that's the only thing negative about him. This guy, 5-time MVP, 2 multiple Super Bowl victories. Peyton Manning had this in an 8.5, but got it in a 9 for that minimum bid of $7.99. Could not go wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely. Although Collector's Edge, once again, is low end, right? It's low end, but it is a mint 9 in that nice, clean lighthouse holder. Glad to add that to the collection. Another card, glad to add to the collection. This Adrian Dantley. Whenever I can find a Hall of Famer from the '87 Fleer for under $10, I will pop. I'll buy it all day long. All day long. And Adrian Dantley, Hall of Famer, averaged 24 plus points a game his entire career, just under 10,000 games. So, actually 1,000 games, excuse me. So he's a 23,000 plus career score. It's funny, it shows him at the Pistons. He was traded for Mark Aguirre to Mavericks, and then Mark Aguirre helped put those finishing touches on those bad boy teams, and Adrian Dantley missed out on those. But good Hall of Fame player. Doesn't get a lot of love, Adrian Dantley, but just glad to get that to the collection because '87 Fleer is not a lot of it out there. All right, on to something that's a little bit more plentiful, kind of near the tail end of that junk wax era before we hit the mid-90s, that 93 Upper Deck Chris Webber. He's the only Hall of Famer from the '93 set. Penny Hardaway is also in that set, not a Hall of Famer, but also a very desirable player as well. But here's his rookie exchange. Once again, minimum bid of $7.99. Another card, minimum bid $7.89. This Frequent Flyers from the '93 Stadium Club. Good action shot of Chris. And once again, there's several of these I lost by not winning. I did not bid anything more than a minimum bid on all these cards right here. Like I said, if I didn't win them, no big deal. No harm, no foul. And then can't go wrong with the mid-90s Jordan. This is a cool shot of him from the '96 Upper Deck set. For the minimum bid of $7.99. It's got the 11s, the patent leather on those, a very iconic shoe, and a really great image of him shooting. You got the Admiral in there as well. It says excellence. Just a cool image on that. The image alone, it's worth $8. But it's kind of a random Michael Jordan. The last two, I did pay a little bit more than a minimum bid, and for good reason. The first one is this 98 Bowman's Best Rookie of Dirk Nowitzki. It's just an 8, but I tell you what, I have not seen a lot of these for sale. And I'm a Dirk collector, and when I was trying to gobble up all the Nowitzkis I could, all the rookies, I just weren't a lot of these even for sale. So I was able to finally get one of these. I'm content with the near mint to mid 8. Paid about $13 for it, for this Bowman's Best. But at the end of the day, I don't expect a huge glut of these to flood the market. Uh, those days are over. You know, no one's ripping these 98 Bowman's Best and pulling sending a bunch of these in to be graded. And then another 98 card, one of my favorite sets, the Upper Deck Ionics and the Kinetics. This is an insert from the Ionics set. This is kind of like pulling a refractor from that set, the same odds. So not a terribly tough pull. You'd get maybe two Kinetics cards per box, maybe 2 or 3, depending. But the Kobe Bryant set of 20, so there's quite a few players in that set. But I love the refractor finish on that. I have this in an 8 and have about 4 of these raw. But for $24, man, I couldn't go wrong getting it in a mint 9 and upgrading it. And this thing is beautiful. Really good centering on this. Top to bottom centering can sometimes be tough. And no refractor lines on this. An extremely clean copy and just gorgeous. Look at that refractor finish on that Bryant. Couldn't be happier, and super fitting. This is the last card I'm going to show with Kobe in the background there. But once again, everyone, I hope you enjoyed it, kind of my thoughts on the hobby and what my collecting future will bring. Feel free, please add any post comments, and I'll talk to you again soon.